Welcome back to Stories from the Stead with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, and head alchemist at Old Homestead Distillery in Birdseye, Indiana. So, any of you who consider yourselves spiritual, you probably have a place you consider pretty special. Mine, for the vast majority of my life, has been Becks, Indiana. It's a sacred spot for many reasons. The crossroads that are there, the energies left by those who came before, both European and Native American, and all the strange doings of that area in general. This article will give you a pretty good overview of what the Black Forest of Indiana was all about, as well as what Becks Mill was all about. I, in my reenactments in Hell's Half Acre, play a character by the name of Reverend Thomas Green. This article mentions him a couple times. Set of articles, actually. We also entitled our reenactment show, the Hell's Half Acre Hellbilly Burlesque Show. And there's a reason for that you will learn within this article. There are a number of outstanding stories that you're going to hear in this article, and after reading this article I feel a little less bad about some of the hijinks that we have pulled on Becks Hill over the years. Hope you guys are enjoying this series, and I plan to keep it running. From our hearts and hearths to yours. A snapshot of the old Becks Mill Rock House, mill, and surroundings. These two articles were written just over 100 years ago, in July of 1922, July 19th and July 26th as it were. Scene of many adventures, and at one time the home of questionable and dangerous characters. Located 6 miles southwest of Salem, known in the 40s and 50s as Hell's Half Acre, and was the home of gamblers. In giving this bit of history of Howard Township, it may be that I shall give some history heretofore given, but such is of necessity to give a clear outline. Scenes. There are many historic points in Washington County, but we do not know of any point of more interest than that of Becks Mill and the surroundings. There are many facts connected with this place which have never appeared in print, nor have been told, and perhaps never will be revealed. This point is situated in Howard Township and is one of the oldest as the settlement in the county. By whom settled? John Becks Sr. settled at what is known as Rutter's Mill, and George Becks Sr. settled on Becks Hill in 1806. From that date to this, some of the Becks have lived and owned the noted hill. George Becks Sr. came in possession of a great fertile body of land lying on Blue River and Mill Creek. He cleared a small tract on Blue River in the year 1807, and from that date to the present it has been in corn every year. The writer has helped to plow the field and saw it produce as much as 75 bushels of corn per acre. Owing to the mill pond caused by the dam at Rutter's Mill, the water backed over this land and left sediment so that the land was new or made land every year. It was said the sediment on this tilled piece was 6 feet deep. This mill pond was 2.5 or 3 miles long, and in many places the water was from 10 to 15 feet deep. How oft do our minds revert to the old swimming hole of the cottonwood, where the boys plunged from its roots into the water, headlong sending up the mist and spray from the blue waters, causing the prismatic colors to dance in the sunlight. Then the fish, bass, goggle-eyed, perch, suckers, catfish, sunfish, etc., caused the eager angler to rejoice. But alas, the dam is gone, and the old mill pond is no more. Fish all gone, and the eager angler is made sad. And we may all cry out, of all the sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest of all it might have been. At the base of the hill is a large spring gushing forth, at whose mouth was built at an early date a small mill, which was put up by the Becks. This mill at first was rude. They ground corn and later wheat. The water was led in a trough to an overshot wheel on whose shaft was a large drum. Over this drum, a leather belt was placed, then a smaller pulley attached to a pulley on the mandrel or rod geared to the mill birds. This mill has undergone several improvements. At one time, an up and down sash saw which was propelled by the water conducted through another aqueduct to an overshot wheel. This sawmill sawed out many thousands. Give this asshole land to get by. Of feet of lumber for the building of barns and houses. The sash saw was followed by a circular saw, and the overshot wheel was followed by the turbine, which was more powerful. And the wooden trough was followed by a large iron cylindrical tube. This mill was at one time a paying institution, but like many other properties, it is gone. Where the woodbine twineth, and the wangadoodle mourn the loss of the firstborn. Yet as one passes, he can see the overshot wheel doing some service for mankind. At one time, much wool was carted into rolls, and Lindsay Woolsey was made from the rolls of the old ladies would trundle the big spinning wheel and spin these rolls into yarn. I will venture to say, by way of prophecy, that this milling property, as located, can be made one of the best ice plants and paying institutions known to a little money investment. The cave, from which this water comes, has some very interesting facts connected herewith. The writer at one time worked in this cave, endeavoring to stop the leaks to conserve the water for mill power. It has been traversed for more than a mile, and in that distance there are many fine stalactite and stalagmite sceneries. The track and bed of bear can be seen, more of which the writer will describe later on. This stream which comes forth from the cave is inhabited with a peculiar kind of fish, which will be described further on in this article. At times when it rains, there are catfish, seined and caught from the water at the dam. This indicates that this subterranean stream must be connected or fed by some pond or stream which is inhabited with catfish. About 3/4 of a mile west of the mouth of this cave is an opening into the cave down which a person can enter by means of an Indian ladder. This place has been utilized in later years by people living in the neighborhood for the keeping of fruit, potatoes, and other articles during the winter. Not far from this opening, through which to enter the famous cave going towards the mouth, the searcher for beauty, grandeur, and curiosities reaches a bed of black material, which no mortal has ever been able to tell what it is. When rubbed between the fingers, it has the appearance of grease. When put on shoe leather, it has the appearance of blacking. As this bed of greasy, glossy material is near many large bear tracks and beds, the writer concluded that at an early date one of the Becks, who was a great bear hunter, shot one of these huge bears, crippled him, and he died at this point, and the deposit is the remains of his bearship. Later on, the writer will deal with the personnel of the Becks and give the history of the killing of the Bruin. At this early date, this part of the township was sparsely settled, and the game of all kinds, such as deer, wildcat, panther, and bears were plentiful. Wild turkeys there were no end. There, tribes of Indians, they had a fowling or campground near the mouth of this cave. The white people built a fort of round logs near the crest of the hill, so that when the Indians got on the warpath, they would rally to the fort. This fort stood there for many years. It is said that one of the chiefs died and was buried near a large stone at the base of the hill. The writer has seen what is said to be the grave of the chief. It is further said that this Indian chief was over 7 feet tall. However, this is a part of the history of the place. The fish which inhabit this water are eyeless, short and transparent. They are not longer than 2 inches. They have no eyes. This is no doubt is God's wisdom in adapting his creatures to the environments. These little fish are very tame, as they can be dipped in the water with the hands. I will leave the further study of this little fish to the piscatorialist. Another curiosity. I have in another article stated something of this curiosity, but owing to some personal history connected therewith, I will give a fuller description. This celebrated curiosity is located on the farm now owned by Lieutenant Governor Ed Bush. Not far from the place settled by John Becks Sr. is a deep hole in the ground, elevated some 100 feet above the level of Blue River. In that hole, then in a dense wood, the water can be seen, and it's said at an early date this cavity in the earth had no bottom. One of the Beck women named Betsy discovered it in 1807 or 1808, and from curiosity dropped her line and hook into it. She had hardly time to get a good breath till her pole was jerked down. She drew out and behold, she had caught a goggle eye, 10 inches long. She continued the catch until she had a fine string of the red eyes. She kept her find a secret for some time, repeating her experience. But finally, as quote-unquote murder will out, her secret became known. Now here's the hidden history. A very rich traveler came that way, and it was the custom for such persons to carry their money on their person. He disappeared and was never heard from anymore by his people. It was rumored that he was murdered for his money, either by the Indians or whites, and his body was buried in this noted fishing hole, and then partly filled up, and for many years this famous fishing place was obliterated. But still, in later years, the red eyes have been caught there in the winter. If any doubts this fish hole story, let him search the truth from those who have of late years caught this splendid species of fish from the same noted hole elevated hundreds of feet above the level of Blue River. There are other things and phenomena about Becks Hill which have never been published, but I shall not enter into the history, as I have given the history of the mineral springs which could be made famous. These springs contain sulfur, iron, and magnesia. I have heretofore in my history spoke of the fine oolitic limestone, so I will not go into that part now. When the railroad, either steam or interurban, is built through there, then this part, I have to scroll back to the top, sorry, of the county will become famous. Never happened. 2 distilleries and 2 saloons. As a part of the history of this place, there were operated for many years 2 distilleries, which manufactured whiskey and brandy in no little quantities. The worm and the still are the main parts of the machinery used to make this commodity. For a number of years, the liquid fire was produced. The 2 distilleries were operated at times to work up fruit, corn, and rye. There were never greater temptation held out to the boys of any neighborhood than was offered to the youth on and about Becks Hill. But it can be said to the honor of them that only one of them all went to the bad. It came out from under the ban and influence and dire temptation of the worm and still, and made men and citizens of no mean grade. Later we will make mention of some of them. I have so far not made mention of the personnel of the early inhabitants of this historic mill.